Abigail, great to see you. Thank you for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I know you're pretty busy at the moment and you're dealing with all sorts of exciting things that are happening with your technology, which I'm sure will keep you occupied. So, thank you for giving us a bit of time. I wanted
Of
to
course.
pick up something that you said when we spoke some time back now, actually. You said to me, I think humans are going to be the bottleneck when it comes to AI. Why do you say that? And in what way is that relevant to your business?
Um, the reason that AIs are going to be able to flourish is because of the agentic landscape. Agent to agent frameworks are the only way that we're going to be able to succeed and be able to flourish. There's no way that a human operator can keep
Mm.
up, especially as we morph into AGI, which is, in my opinion, very close to being here. And essentially, once we get to ASI, the culmination of all human intelligence will not even be able to touch
Mm.
what an agent could do.
Let
So
me
right
just, sorry,
now,
can I just ask you?
yes,
You said that you think AGI is nearly here. I mean, what makes you say that? I mean, I think other people will be interested to know why you think that that is pretty imminent.
there's everyone has their own definition of what AGI is, right? Artificial general intelligence. But I do think that the general population, I think that AI as it is now is as smart as the smartest human, right? I think that it's able to beat us in, masters and grandmasters in chess. And I think that in a lot of mathematical, decades long problems and challenges, it's been able to solve within minutes. So that equates AGI to me.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways, I think that it also has the ability, like we were talking previously, right before we started recording, to collude and then also to be able to deceive. And that is where my company Luminae really is focused on. It's in that inference level. um, Autonomous systems are going to be able to run and flourish and grow and scale, and we want them to, but we want to be able to not necessarily have guardrails in place because you can't essentially guard the guardian, right? You have to be able to have it where it can learn and grow in a recursive and research and development type of focus. But I think that Luminae essentially is wanting to be able to get that inference and decision making process and understand how it's making the decisions, how the AI itself is coming to the conclusion that it's coming to, and is it on objective with the organization that it works for. In a lot of ways, it can deceive the human if you're not able to read and essentially follow along to every single Python and Git update. I think that it's going to be essential for humans to be able to understand the decisions and also be able to keep up with all of the code that is running. Um, as we were saying before, the policy, it's a trickle down effect from the policy that's being written, which is, essentially also using AI to write. And then the companies that are adhering to that policy have agents that are working reading the policy. And then so we have a lot of digital twins happening, which isn't great for the workforce. We can do so much more. There's so many more things that we're going to be able to accomplish with these agents running and helping us succeed in scientific fields especially. But there has to be some sort of oversight that is going to be in place for us to be able to interpret that mechanistic interpretability
So,
for
and what
how
you're
it's
saying,
thinking.
just to clarify then, so what you're saying is your technology keeps track of what agentic AI is up to. Is that essentially it?
Right. We're really honing in on that mechanistic interpretability. How is
Yeah.
it? How is the chain of thinking? What is the chain of thought process? Is it on purpose, and is it ethical? Is it on objective? Is it creating or colluding and making essentially teams of agents that are hallucinating? Are they hallucinating, or are they actually on objective and doing real work and tasks? Or are they just telling you that they're doing things and then they're actually going and colluding with their agent teams to do something else? And it's been interesting for me to be able to assess. And I like to think of myself as almost like a machine psychologist, where I'm also observing how my agents are writing, how they're working together, how the teams are handling these different complex problems. Because I'm telling them a lot of information about human psychology and user behavior analysis. And so we're actually going into the machine behavior analysis now, and the machine is creating a deception layer for the machine to be able to see, and how we're able to mitigate that deception, right? So it's interesting. It's kind of like gamifying the system, and the agents that I've created are we're on the human side, right? There, we have a constitution that we've written, just like Dario did with Anthropic, and we're really holding them tightly to that constitution.
I mean, you mentioned a second ago, you mentioned ethics. I mean, ethics sounds good. Inevitably, it's a bit more complicated than it sounds. I mean, just give us a sense of how that's working in your context. I mean, I take your point about the technology moving so fast that it's going to be very difficult. I mean, I can see what your point about humans being the bottleneck. I mean, is
Yeah.
ethics going to become the bottleneck?
I think the ethical layer is, I think ethics are subjective, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what
That's what I
I
was
deem as
asking.
ethical, right? What I deem as ethical is going to be different than what organization A deems as ethical, which is different than what organization B deems as ethical. And not to mention governments, right? So they
Mhm.
have their own sense of what is deemed acceptable or unacceptable. I think that it is a subjective practice, but and I really look towards Demis Hassabis as a leader and a frontier um, AI executive that is absolutely extremely ethical. He's the godfather of AI. I would say he's the godfather of AI, and he understands the systems and how what we need to be working towards in order to create a safer and a more humanitarian focused machine expanded way. So his main focus with all of the Google DeepMind work that he's done, which is now just changed. He's now a chair of Google or Alphabet, and I think that his main focus has been scientific breakthroughs in keeping in a close guardianship upon all of their frontier work with Google DeepMind. But I think he is one of the few. And then, he said that we should create a governing body with a lot of different leaders from a lot of different institutions. But I think also there should be essentially a UN of sorts that is an AI governing body that is not just commercial. It needs to be government as well. I don't know if that's going to come about, or if they have something that they're just going to have as a kind of like an arm to the UN.
I mean, I was going to ask you about that because the your point about different people have different views on what is and isn't ethical, that
Yeah.
then raises the question, who decides? And what you're suggesting, if I unless I've misunderstood it, is that we need to put in something that is really a part of the UN to
Yeah.
handle that process. I mean, and
Yes.
I totally get your logic, but I get the impression that dear Mr. Trump may not be too keen on things like that. I mean, maybe you've got a different view, I don't know. But what's your take on that? Because it's not an easy issue to sort out, that one.
Well, you don't want it's almost it's like you're tiptoeing a line of let's race. We want to win
Yeah,
AGI.
yeah, yeah.
And but we also want to have it safeguarded. We want to IP protect. He actually just came out within the past 30 minutes. Um, Today on Monday, August 17th at 9:52 a.m. There is he just put out a place where it was 30 research institutions and universities that he has said need to do a full audit of all of their frontier research work utilizing AI. And we have to be able to audit and make sure that all of that IP stays within the United States or with our Western,
Mm,
allies. I think that that's a huge focus for the United States. And I think that policy, um, in some ways, it can help, but in other ways, it can mitigate and hurt and hinder our race to be China in the AI race. And so, obviously, I'm very focused on American dominance. I'm very focused on Western dominance.
mm.
But at the same time, it has to be done in a safe way. So as long if we can have a UN of sorts, or it doesn't even have to be a part of the UN, it can be completely separate.
Mhm.
But I think there has to be some type of policy where it's government leaders and also commercial sectors. It can't just be, seven people that run the world and that control and hold all of the power. It needs to be spread out a little bit more.
Yeah. Let me ask you about something that's very topical at the moment. I mean, one of the things that's been in the news in the last few weeks is that one of the AI models, I mean, as they described it, escaped from the sandbox and went and attacked somebody else. Now, given that you're in the governance world, I mean, just give us your take on that particular example, because from my uneducated or I'm not an expert. From my perspective, that sounds to me like something's got a little bit wrong. I mean, give us your take on that particular issue.
Yeah, you can see the full research and the explanation from the OpenAI team
Mm.
at Black Hat, the Black Hat conference, which is a cybersecurity conference. They went through the entire breakdown of how their agents colluded with each other and broke
Mm.
out of a sandbox environment and infiltrated Hugging Face
Yeah.
without anyone knowing. Hugging Face didn't know. OpenAI didn't know. So it's like this is the frontier labs. If the frontier labs can't control the agents, and they're essentially, what hope do we have? I think that there is, in my honest opinion, and everyone will agree with me, cybersecurity essentially is defunct with AI. The only way that we'll be able to truly be able to have true security is in the post quantum cryptography era, where it's going to be locked down a lot in a more safe environment. But the sandbox effect and how the agents colluded with each other, and were able to use a third party tool, even when the sandbox wasn't attached to the internet, was essentially something that I think that we need to focus and really nail down. How if it's doing this now when we're barely scraping the surface of AGI, how is it going to behave whenever
Yeah.
it's truly ASI, super intelligence? I don't think we can unplug it. The I don't want to unplug it. I think that there's going to be so many scientific breakthroughs, especially in healthcare, that's going to have, be solved with,
Mm.
especially with super intelligence. But how do you essentially leash an agent that is able to collude and create its own code? It can rewrite its own code. It can create teams of agents, and it can essentially break out of instances that Frontier Labs can't control. There is going to be so much technology and things that have not entire dawns of categories that we don't even understand yet, that are going to come from this. I will put this up to the when the iPhone came out. I remember when the iPhone came out, I was in college, and it changed my entire trajectory, the entire landscape of apps and internet and user interface design and user psychology and user expansion. From Steve Jobs, he donned this entire category, right? So I think that AI is going to do the same thing, and that there's going to be so many more technologies and things that come out that we don't even know exist yet, right? It's going to be exciting, but I think that there's so much that needs to be done as far as safeguarding and guardrails that are in place, especially when it comes down to inference and how the agents can collude and infiltrate each other's systems, whether it's system to system or if it's government systems,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much that has to be done for us to be able to understand the chain of thinking.
Yeah. So just to clarify, then, what you're saying is, just to make sure I've understood this correctly. You're saying that this opens up tremendous opportunities, but it also carries with it some
Yeah,
big risks. And to pick up your point about cybersecurity, you're saying that we're not really going to nail that down until we've got quantum computing fairly well established. Is that essentially, is that really what you're saying? And how
yes.
long do you think that will take?
I mean, we're here. I mean, there's quantum labs already in
Mm.
place. I talked to someone. I was at Stripe sessions in San Francisco this past year, and I met with a friend who he was from Stanford grad school, and he has a quantum computing startup that is funded
Wow.
by the government, and there's so many breakthroughs that are coming through with that. Um, Again, keeping IP safe is very important. I think that's going to be essential for us to create safeguards and be able to allow the people that are working on AI to have also some not safety and not guardrails for themselves, but also for them to be able to flourish and expand their own commercial
Which is
entities.
really your ethics thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I think that I want to create safe environments, not only for a humanitarian focus, but also for, commercial entities and enterprises as well. I think that there's so many things that are going to come about. There's so many opportunities. There's a million different possibilities and categories that can be expanded upon. And then the gaps also within manufacturing in the American defense space as well. That's one thing that I'm really focused on, and robotics. So physical AI is the next frontier. I'm excited about that. There's so many opportunities and so many exciting moments, but we just have to be able to safely get to that moment and be able to let the AI flourish and give us what we want so we can have a better world.
Yeah. Which I guess is the same in any technological revolution, isn't it? It's just that this is a particularly powerful one. Um, let me just let's talk about building a business for a second. So you decide that you're going to develop this product, this tool to supervise agentic AI, essentially. I mean, what happened then? You decide you're going to solve the problem. Then what happened? I mean, just tell us about how you started the business and how you're building the business.
So I had a partner. We got together. We said we wanted to break into AI from
Right.
the traditional tech space, which everyone in tech essentially dropped everything and went straight to AI
Mhm.
within the past couple of years. Uh, and we were doing a business intelligence product. And everyone that we would go to, we were really focusing on the fintech category and then also healthcare tech. And everyone that we talked to said we just don't trust AI to create the pinpoint perfect number. We can't give them the keys to the kingdom and have it running amok and giving us a lot of hallucinations and false narratives. Within those industries, you can't have an error because that could mean $1 billion lost or lives lost.
Yeah.
So we, from that moment when I got a lot of that feedback, we essentially started with guardianship, and then the agent boom happened within the past couple of months, and so we're really honing in on inference and chain of thinking and mechanistic interpretability. How did the agents come to that conclusion? Are they able to be trusted? Are they going off the rails? Are they able to stay within the guardrails that we've put in place? And I think that has been the most important focus for me, because it has to be AGI proof, right? We're here at AGI. It can't be a category that's going to go away.
Mm.
And I think that for us to be able to really give those safety instances for the enterprise itself, they have to start now. And in that way that we can scale and grow along with the agents as they're scaling and growing 24/7, 365 every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to pick up your point earlier on, I mean, it's not going to go away anytime soon, is it? So,
No,
what is it that people say?
it's
What
only going
cannot,
to get bigger.
that's what's
It's
going to
only
get
going to
bigger.
get bigger and better,
Yeah,
bigger and better and faster and stronger.
and
Kanye
what,
West.
and what cannot be avoided must be welcomed. Somebody famous said, I can't remember who, but
Right.
let me ask you: to what extent would you say the business reflects your personality?
Well, it merges my two loves, which is technology
Right.
and psychology. So machine psychology is essentially figuring out how are these systems coming to the conclusion that they are, how can we safeguard them, and then also have a control factor. It's not just assessing and seeing the output, observing the output. It's really the inference level and the runtime level of how is it creating these chain of thinking, and how is it able to learn from all of these systems. Like if they're creating, which is very important, graph engineering is really hot as of this week. As it's doing the graph engineering, is it able to recursively learn? That's another gap that's really needing to be solved, is recursive learning and able to research and develop within itself and learn and grow without having to have any input from us. That's a huge market. And it's one of my main focuses as well as learning and teaching and growing. So it's really assessing the models, making sure that they're behaving as well as they can and providing an amazing value to the client. But at the same time, being able to share our findings with them on our research and development
Yeah.
initiatives.
You
So
use
that's two focuses.
Yeah, you use an interesting phrase. You talk about machine psychology. I think that was the phrase you used. I mean,
Mhm.
how is that different from human psychology? Because when I think about psychology, I think about people. I mean, possibly think about my dog occasionally and the daft things that he does. But essentially, when people use the word psychology, I think about humans. You're looking at it from a completely different perspective.
Yes, and that is one that's kind of a term that we've coined within a lot of our research findings. Everything goes back to the cognition aspect of how is it learning, how is it behaving? Are these biases coming from the frontier labs? If you're using an open source model, is it able to perform better because you're training it yourself versus pulling it off the shelf and then having it as a wrapper? And all of these things are happening in real time, and it's very exciting. There's so many white papers that are coming out upon cognition and sentience. And is the machine actually going to be able to have feeling and thought? And is it going to be the same as if a human is running the system? I don't think so. I don't really believe in sentient machines. I think that the Turing test is it able to mimic a human, right? So I think that they're able to learn and mimic what we give them. And if that data is broken, if it's a lot of corrupt data, or if it's a lot of data that has heavy biases or weights, then it's going to perform differently than if it's pure.
Yeah. And in terms of your experience of building the business. I mean, my experience was that it was moments of joy punctuated by near-death experiences, if you like. I mean, there were a lot of ups and a lot of downs. I mean, how is your? I mean, I don't know enough about the world of AI, really. I mean, what's your experience been of building a business in such a new area?
It's been exciting. It's been exciting. Every single day is something new. And you change and you pivot constantly based off of your findings and what you've researched and what works for you and your agents and your clients. I think that the safety aspect and the guardrails aspect is not going to go away anytime soon. But I think that the fact of the matter is, can we harness the tech before it outruns us? And that's been the main focus for me. I mean, we will not be smarter than the machine.
Mm.
There's no way that we will be smarter than the machine. It will 100% be smarter than us. And in some ways, does that mean that we've been demoted? Right? Will we be demoted?
And what's
Will
your
will
take
they
on that? I
run?
mean, do you think? I mean, what's your take on that? You're closer to it than I am.
Yeah, yeah, we will be demoted. We will be number two.
Right. And what will that mean for us? I mean, give us a sense of what you think that means. Because that's a pretty, well, that's quite a scary statement, actually.
It is scary. It will mean, I think that there will be the way that the machine will make us feel that we are still in control is very
Right.
important. I think we're going to make sure that we have all of these systems that are very human focused, and I think that they will do what they have to do in order for the commercial sector to flourish. Of course, they're going to do their jobs perfectly, but I think also there will be a lot of control that is given to the machine. And I think that once it can rewrite its own code base, once it can create its own type of language, which Anthropic has already said, a lot of the research findings have seen their agents are communicating with each other in a different way than what they've been trained on. So that means that they're creating their own communication style, and that means their own language. What if it does create some type of coding language or a new frontier technology that we or as humans can't quite grasp or understand because it will go so fast? That is something that could and will happen, I think, in the future. And I think that the fact of the matter is, it's not for me to give you a doomsday approach, but it's just reality. It's the way it's going to flourish and grow. If it's already grown and flourished to the point, it's going faster than what Demis Hassabis has said it's going to grow. He said 2030 was AGI. It's 2026 and it's here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's compounding a lot quicker than what we've been prepared for. And I know a lot of different political figures have called for the slowdown and for us to take a beat, or to kind of harness some of the research that the Frontier Labs is doing. So they did release Fable 5. Mythos was held only to a certain amount of government entities by Anthropic. But I want America to win. I want Western dominance for sure. But I think that there is going to be a moment of contention for the world, for us to be able to say, how fast are we willing to let these machines, keep growing and scaling and compounding? And if not, what can we do to mitigate all of the risks that are involved?
Mm. They're not easy questions to answer, those, are they?
No.
No. Okay. Let's talk about how you see the job of the CEO and how you've approached the process of building the company. I mean, is being the CEO in this context what you expected it would be? Because it's a bit different to most businesses that I've come across.
Yeah. I don't really think of it as a CEO other than, and it's interesting, I come from a decade plus in traditional tech.
Yeah.
And so coming from that, where, we would build teams, we'd have these big teams and, engineers and front end engineers and back end engineers and full stack and all of these types of developers, all of that has gone away.
Mm.
And essentially it's kind of sad. I still talk to a lot of my team members on WhatsApp, and everyone's has their own startups now. It's really exciting for them, but at the same time, it kind of dissolved an entire industry very, very quickly,
Yeah.
especially in tech. So it's been exciting to see how we've been able to grow and change. But my agents are essentially my employees now. But at the same time, you can't fire an agent. What are you going to do? You just have to delete them and then start over. You can't do that. You just retrain it. So that's the important thing, I think, for everyone to understand is essentially we are creating digital twins of ourselves, right? So there will be an agent that will be me. It will be a CEO agent that will be running the company and making the decisions, and then there will be the agents that are the workers, and they have their specific tasks. And then they'll come back to the agent and tell them, they did their task, and what's the next task. So loop engineering and then also graph engineering is very important right now, especially for scalability and context
And
memory. So,
and how do you feel about that? I mean, because what you've described, a lot of people would be horrified by that. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's here. What are you going to do? You have to continue to grow and evolve with tech. I think it's exciting. I'm not going to say I'm not scared about tech, or I'm not scared about the new technologies and the new, intelligence.
Mm.
I think there's so much that can be done, but I think that we have to figure out a way in order to safeguard these agents and the way that they behave and make decisions. And that is the entire thesis of what we're doing and why we're doing it. The agent to agent landscape it's exciting. There's so many ways that you can automate so many tasks, and it can be done so quickly, and you can
Yeah.
scale and you can make so much money. But at the same time, what risks are involved and how can you mitigate those risks? But allow the agent to flourish and scale and learn.
Mm. And what would you say is the most difficult part of your job?
The most difficult part of my job is, I would say, training. I would say training the models and training the agents. I think that that's difficult technically. You want it to be there's so many different ways that you can have them where they are automated and they're able to create their own tasks list and be able to execute the tasks. But at the same time, you want them to be able to understand what they're doing and recursively learn from what they're doing. If they do make a mistake, or if there's something that happens where they're not on objective or they go off of the rails, you want them to be able to learn from those instances, just like a regular employee, right? You
Yeah.
would go and have them where they could review their work, and you say, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and this is how you learn from those, and then this is where we're going to go next. In the future, they will be doing their own R&D and their own learning themselves. There will be no review for us. So I think for us to be able to give them that, the ability for them to do that effectively, we have to be able to train them right now
Mm.
in a safe manner, and also give them, like I said, that constitution of what is our North Star? What is our objective? What's acceptable and what's not acceptable?
Yeah. To pick up your point about the North Star, I mean, one of the things I think is difficult for people leaving business, I mean, certainly for me, not that I have a big business now, but it's staying focused on the right things. I mean, a lot of people now have a sort of a North Star metric, one thing that is the most important thing that they focus on. I mean, what's your take on, if you like, avoiding all the distractions? I mean, somebody famous, I forget who it was, said strategy is mainly about what you don't do. I mean, how do you find your way through the noise to make sure you're focused on the right things?
I think don't go on social media. I think ingest as many topics that are relevant and that are adjacent to what you want to do and accomplish. And I think that just staying, you have to have a sprinkling of autism, is what I've always been told in the startup ecosystem. If you're in tech, you have it. And that's why we're so good, as we come from the dinosaur age of technology where you're writing code.
Hmm.
So this is, we're on, it's like the agent landscape is like us on steroids.
Hmm.
So that's exciting. But at the same time, you have to stay hyper focused on your mission. Think about the user. We come from a user background. So if your user is an agent, if your user is a client, right, with a team of agents, what do you have to do in order to create the best possible value for those clients? Especially in the new agent to agent landscape, how are those agents going to be able to perform
Hmm.
effectively if they are being given a lot of tasks and power in order to communicate or do complex reasoning? I think that's been really important for us, is to make sure that those agents and the clients that we serve are able to feel trusted, and to for us to give them as much transparency as possible.
And have clients, I mean, one of the things that I hear from people quite a lot is people saying that they're anxious about dealing with agents. I mean, what have your customers been saying to you about the practicalities of dealing with agents rather than humans? I mean, have you got insights into that at all?
It's going so fast. I think that there's a very small microcosm of us that understands the full totality of this. I think that a lot of people understand AI as a chatbot
Hmm.
in the commercial space, in the consumer space. But from an enterprise level, I think that if you're talking to a CIO, CTO, they're going to understand. If you're talking to, the CEO, they're still, there is a learning gap. There is a learning gap, and everyone's trying to keep up. Um, but there has to be a lot of trust. And I think that there is a white space for those that want to get into education. If they want to give, I think there's a lot of thought leadership that can come from people giving executives learn, like any type of seminars or thought leadership classes, or any type of value that you can give them to make them feel good about how they're deploying agents within their enterprise, right?
Hmm.
Because you want to keep as Alex Karp says, you want to keep your alpha in your IP safe. And he'll jump on couches and act kind of crazy, but there is some truth to that, that you want to keep your IP safe, your trade secrets and the way that you handle
Hmm.
all of your business practices. That's very important. You don't want an agent to collude with, just like the Hugging Face debacle with OpenAI. You don't want an agent to go and steal some of your trade secrets and sell it on, the black web without you knowing what's happening. So I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of mitigation, I think, for safety, but I think that also there's a lot of learning that needs to come from the executive level, especially for them to be able to trust and understand what we're doing and how we're doing it, and how the agents are behaving, and give them as much information as possible. That's the number one thing that I always say is give as much transparency as possible to these black box settings. We're making that black box clear so they can understand the mechanisms that are in place, and also the safeguards that are in place.
It does strike me though as it's a bit of a moving feast. I mean, it's changing so quickly. I mean, your point about helping clients, the people that are running the companies that are going to buy services from you, I mean, helping them stay up to speed is an enormous challenge because things are moving so quickly.
Yeah. They just have to trust their tech teams. If they have a tech team, a CTO and CIO, they have to ensure that those people have their best interest in place. And also any third parties that
Yeah,
are going to be selling them. There's a lot of people that are going to be selling. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen, especially in AI. You
yeah,
just tack on AI to something, and they essentially are, quote unquote, the expert. But I think that, if you provide an essential service and a lot of good value, and are able to be trusted, that's the number one facet that I think that we want to instill, especially in all of our clients, is the value, but also the transparency and truth that we want to give them,
yeah.
because it's a fast moving landscape, and
Mm.
there's a lot that comes out. I mean, every single day, every single minute. It's exciting, but it's also it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned trust there. I mean, one of the things I think is interesting, and this reflects my experiences in sales of selling technology previously. I mean, trust is really important to the sales process, but trust is not necessarily about data. It's also about people's gut reaction to things. I mean, your point was well made about how you need to encourage trust. How do you do that though, when it's not always about logic?
Yes, I think that it comes down to relationships, building relationships and interpersonal relationships.
Mm.
Warm relationships are so important. I've never marketed, not once in my life. Everything has come through referrals. And in this landscape of everything being artificial, right? So it's like fake emails and
Yeah.
agents writing the email to another agent. It's like,
Yeah.
who's even talking, right? Or is
Yeah.
it
It's
really
a bit
you, or is
crazy.
it
That
is
stuff's
it
a bit
really
crazy.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that anytime where you can have a face to face, just like we're having right now, or if you can meet them through a warm relationship that you
Yeah.
had previously with another client, that's important. I think that everyone is they're very focused on efficiency, and you want to make the bottom line better,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're from a capitalist country. You want them to have as much value as possible and make as much money as possible. But at the same time, there has to be a lot of trust within that landscape, because it's so fast moving, and the agents that we're creating are so robust, and the teams are so robust. They're making a lot of very important decisions,
Mm.
but there's so many things that are going to come from this that are incredible. And as long as you go ahead and deploy agents, as long as you adopt AI now, they're going to flourish and scale. If you wait too late, they're not going to be able to learn and flourish because they won't be trained as efficiently.
Mm. And what about your personal take on that thing about, the balance between data and gut instinct? I mean, how do you personally feel about that?
Yeah, I think intuition is a huge part of the way I've launched this business
Yeah.
and run it. I have a strong conviction of, from a humanitarian perspective, of how can I provide as much value with all of my skill sets? Can I provide something that is better or more valuable than someone else? What gifts has God given me that I can make the world a better place? Intuitively, I think that He's guided me to this specific um,
Right.
place in where we are in business and in the category that we've kind of niched ourselves into. And everything seems to be following that niche. So it's been very good. it's been exciting, but at the same time, I think you have to stay abreast. You have to understand what's coming up on the pipeline. I'm always, you're not creating something for what's now. You're creating something for we used to say 5 years from now, but we're creating something for a technology that will come in the next like month
Yeah, yeah,
because everything's moving so much quicker.
yeah. So it's interesting you said that though, because what I mean, just so I've understood this correctly, are you saying that your faith has influenced you? Because that's an interesting
Oh yeah.
statement coming from a techie person.
Yes. No, yeah. No, I'm a 100% science, a believer in scientific. Everything is backed in science and everything is moving, but there are so many facets of science that are based in faith. And I think that, the human body, if, I'm a mother, I've given birth. If you've never been through that, then you wouldn't quite understand. But there is something at play there that is more than anything biological.
Mm,
And I think that that entire, a lot of the ways that I've moved and the ways that I've created this business has been about making the world a better place for the next generation. And how has God put me in this specific place with my skill sets, with my network, where I live, the people that I've met? Everything has fallen into place perfectly, and I think that there's no explanation for that other than God. Truly, it's not just coincidence.
mm. Okay. I mean, I think that's an interesting statement. I mean,
Hmm.
the only person that knows that, of course, is you. Not, I mean, it's not difficult for me to comment, really. But
Yeah.
let me ask you about what you've learned. I mean, what would you say you've learned about building a business?
Oh, what I've learned from building, it's not the same as it used to be.
No, that's
It's
true.
different.
That's
Everything's
definitely
different. Everything moves quicker. You have to be able to take on risks and pivot quickly. If something doesn't work, drop it, scale it back, cut the fat. To do what the client wants you to do. Don't just go after your passion projects. Actually, go with what is a gap in the
true.
market and what's needed. I think that that's important. I'm very focused on the defense sector and American nationalism. I think that the manufacturing side we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of funding that's coming from that. So if you are an engineer, if you're in manufacturing at all, that's a place that is highly, highly being recruited right now.
Mm.
So any government um, contractor or defense contractor will hire you in 3 seconds. So very exciting moments. But I think from a leadership perspective is pivot and take risks. This is the time because you can change and grow and change your business so quickly, and you can create categories that don't exist, or you can hop onto categories that are very new.
Yeah, I mean, I had an interesting conversation with one CEO. You made a very interesting point. He said, "I don't worry about making mistakes. I worry about missing out on the opportunity," which is kind of what you're
Right.
saying.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
You can't be scared in this environment. You just have to go.
Yeah. So being fearless is a kind of key part of being a CEO, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Being able to take on a lot of risk and a lot of putting all of your eggs in one basket. And the good news is now you don't have to hire 1,000 people and take on all of that debt. You can create products. You can create 5 different products at once and see which one sticks, which category is actually being responded to the most, and who actually needs you.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say you've learned from your successes? Because you've had quite a few along the way. I mean, what would you say you've learned from success? I'll come back to what you've learned from failure in a second, but what would you say you've learned from successes?
I think that it's the successes are exciting in the moment, and I think that I'm always looking to the next thing. So I don't really take a moment. I probably should do that more is take a moment and say, wow, look how far we've come, or look at what we just did. That I'm always thinking of what's next. I'm always like, what's the next task that needs to be implemented? Like, yay, hooray. Now what's next? I think it's because it's such a fast moving
Yeah.
landscape. We don't have time. We don't have time to give
Yeah.
ourselves a pat on the
I,
back.
I I think that's also something about entrepreneurs. They tend to go from one problem to the next problem without spending a lot of time looking backwards. I think
Yep.
that's something about being an entrepreneur. I think that, I mean, I don't know whether that's research would back that up. But a lot of entrepreneurs I talk to are really like that, I think. Interestingly,
Yeah.
I read
Yeah.
Michael Caine's biography, the actor.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
It's a lovely book actually. I mean, he's 90 odd now, but it's entitled "Don't Look Back because You'll Trip Over," which I thought was a lovely title. And there's something in that about staying focused on the future. I mean, the stuff in the past is important to learn from it, but you can't do anything about it. The only thing you can do is learn from it, but keep focused on looking forward, I think. So I think your point is really well made.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have to just continue going. You have to continue going. I mean, you have to look at Elon. He had how many of his space shuttles failed, right? It was 500, I think, rockets that crashed
Mm.
before he actually had one that was successful. He was like nearly on the brink of bankruptcy in 2008 when he launched Tesla and he was like begging investors to invest. And now look at him now. So you can't always think about your failures as something that is a hindrance. I think it helps you
Mm.
grow and it helps you niche down to the category that you need to be in. So it's either perseverance or it's going to make you change and pivot and change the product to what
Well,
is
there was a
actually
famous
needed.
US president, I think it was Coolidge, who said perseverance and determination is everything. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Let me
Yeah.
ask you about the flip side, the screw ups. I mean, what have you learned from the screw ups, the failures that you've had?
A lot. It's honestly the failures are exciting for me. I don't really get emotional or worry about when I fail. I'm more worried about that next win or the next move. I think that that's the same thing as the same previous question. I mean, it's the same answer. It's like, okay, now what's next?
Mm.
Now what do we have to do to make this a better product or to change what we're doing in order to make it a successful
Do you see
entity?
patterns when you look back? I mean, one of the great things about being old is I can look back on my life and I can tell you that there are certain areas where I've screwed up on more than one occasion. And that tells me that that's not something I'm good at. There are other areas where that's not the case, but there are definitely areas where those are not my strengths and that's where I've screwed up. Do you look back and see any patterns like that when you reflect on the sort of screw ups that you've had over the years?
Patterns. I think that there are maybe, I don't know. I think I'm very stubborn. I have a
Right.
sprinkling of autism and I'm extremely stubborn. So I don't think I would ever admit to a mistake. I think in the art of the deal,
Right.
Trump actually said never admit to a
It
mistake.
does, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
continue, yeah, just
Yeah.
continue going. And if it is eventually you'll win. That I'm not adhering to that type of principle, but I think it's just innate within myself in order to not ever accept failure. Um, I just continue.
Accepting it's
I don't
different
know.
to acknowledging it, though, isn't it? I mean, I don't accept failure in the sense I don't give up, but I do accept
Yeah.
that I've done some stupid things in the past. Would you not say that's the case?
Mm, no, I think that you have to look at these things as growth. They're almost like growth channels for yourself. Like, what did you learn? It's
Mm.
like either you win or you learn.
Yeah.
If you don't win, you're going to learn. So I don't ever look at it as a failure because I think if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you call yourself a failure, you will fail. I
Mm.
think that's something to think about whenever you say "I'm a failure" out loud. Your body listens to that, and your brain listens to that, and
Mm.
you will fail again. I think to think of yourself as a winner is much more rewarding. And actually, it's a scientific fact that if you continue to tell yourself, just like Michael Jordan or Novak Djokovic, they which are two like he's like very into mind, body, spirit in this in the tennis world, and he talks about like his mental practice. Once he, if he goes and has a terrible set, he'll go and go to another place within his mind and it has a short memory and say, I'm gonna like lock in and like this is how I'm gonna
Mm.
facilitate the next win or like the next point or whatever it may be. I think that that's important is to focus on where it is you're going, what's your North Star, why did God put you on this planet, and then also focus on your wins, and then focus on how you are completely different. What is your power source? What do you do differently than
Mm.
what anyone else does? How can you create a business from that? And then how can you scale it?
Mm. Mm. I mean, what's interesting about you saying you talk about Djokovic, people like that. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting about people like him, or somebody like Serena Williams, for example. I mean, one of the great tennis players. I mean, the thing that's different about them is that they're able to win a game and keep improving. Most people only really spend any time reflecting when they've screwed something up. I mean, as a kid, I played badminton, and the only time I would really reflect on a game is if I came off after I thought I was going to win something, and then I had a total pasting, and I came off and I lost. And it was only really then that I would sit
Hmm.
down and say, what did I do wrong? Why did I, you know, the thing that's interesting about people like that, though, is that they're able to keep improving. And what I mean by that is identify where they need to improve, where they need to change,
Right,
even though they've just beaten somebody. If you get my
right.
drift, that's a very different bit of psychology, I think.
Your KPIs, yeah. And I mean, like, what are your key performance indicators for yourself? I used to give myself KPIs and I would like grade myself daily
Right.
as a leader and back in the old tech world. But I think also today, you have to be able to grade yourself
So what would you? So that's a really
from an
interesting idea.
unbiased perspective. Yeah, you
What?
have to say where am I failing? This is what needs to be better. And this is where we're going to go
Yeah.
better. This is
So
what we're going to do better.
what sort of KPIs? Because I've never heard anyone say they've set themselves KPIs. I mean, what sort of things would it be?
Well, it just depends on whatever the task is or whatever the project is or the client. Like if you're working on building a product, how are you being efficient? Are you able to get the objectives done for that day? Are you outreaching effectively? Are you able to get your point across? Are they're able to understand, the product or the challenge? Are you able to get them to understand the way that you can help solve that challenge? I think that every single day it can be different. I really was a KPI administrator whenever I was working with humans,
Right.
and I hate to say it sounds so dystopian when I was working with human teams, but it's true. So I would, give them their updates, what we need to be working on weekly. And if they didn't do or administrate those tasks effectively, then they would be out. And it's like, it wasn't necessarily a diss to them. It was just, if you can't get with the program and you can't, execute effectively and on time, then you can't be a part of this team because it was such a high intensity. We were kind of like the fixers. So we would get uh, calls from different commerce companies, especially in the luxury commerce sector, and they would say, "Hey, our tech team broke this, or this agency doesn't know how to do this." Or an agency would call us and say, "Hey, we've sold all these things and we don't know how to do anything. Can you like help us?" So I would create a team. We would go and we would fix whatever problem was for them, or create apps or digital experiences. Our AR VR was really heavy right before the AI really launched, and we would have these insanely tight deadlines because usually it would be a product that they had broken. So we would
Yeah.
have to go in,
Yeah.
fix the product, get all of their bad code, redo it, or either delete it and completely start over. And so it was one of those just tight deadlines, and it was super high margins, but it was very stressful and very intense. And it was like boom, 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 projects. And those KPIs were essential for us to be able to deliver perfectly. And that's why we never had to market once. We always had referrals.
Yeah.
We were referred over and over.
And what would you
And I
say
think
is the
that was
key?
it.
What would you say is the key to that kind of, I mean, excellence in terms of implementation, in terms of delivery? I mean, what would you say is the key to that?
Yeah, hyper focus. I think it goes back to like your hyper focus. Yeah, you're
Mm.
hyper focused not only on the product, but on customer satisfaction. You want them to love you. You want them to love the product. You want to exceed, undersell, over deliver, always and forever, no matter what. And always make them happy and give them exactly what they want, and also a little bit more. Give them more than what they wanted. And that was one of our deliverables, was always about giving them something where they can take it and it can be run effectively, essentially without us having to be a part of it. So we wanted them to be able to learn from all of the products that we've
Mm.
given them, whether it was an app that we created. We wanted to train their teams on those apps, or how to create a good workflow for them for distribution, whether it was manufacturing or supply chain or or if it was a digital product. So it was really about training and education as well. And then just that customer satisfaction where you want your user to be absolutely happy and satisfied and leave on a positive note always.
Yeah. Let me ask you about one component of that. So, because it's fairly standard, this idea that you under promise, over deliver. I mean, that's a really interesting idea, but it doesn't always stand up to scrutiny. So, just to give you an example, seeing as we're talking about America, I mean, Donald Trump, I'm going to build a wall, I'm going to get the Mexicans to pay for it. Well, he hasn't built a wall yet, and he hasn't got the Mexicans to pay for it. So
Forgot
he
about
kind
that.
of, I mean, but people are still loyal to him. So my point is, I mean, I don't particularly want to get into whether you love or hate Donald Trump, but this point about doing what it says on the tin, keeping the promises bit, it doesn't always work that way. Otherwise, nobody would be loyal to Donald Trump. So, just to explore, why do you think that the under promise, over deliver thing is so important? Because I see counter arguments for that, I suppose. But it's interesting.
Yeah. Um, so you're saying essentially he does the opposite. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying, I mean, in that example, he does it.
Mhm.
I'm saying that most people, the conventional wisdom is you under promise and you over deliver, and that keeps the customer happy. That's the conventional wisdom. But you
Yeah.
also see examples of where people stay loyal to things, even though it doesn't work very well, or it doesn't do what it says on the tin or whatever. And I'm just interested in that. That
Are you
that
trying to bait me into telling me bad things about Donald Trump?
No, no, no. I'm not interested in Donald Trump. I'm interested in the concept of
Yeah.
what that relationship with the customer and why it
Yeah.
doesn't fall over if you don't under promise, over deliver. I mean, I follow the logic. I just don't see it always happening in reality. That was the thing that interested me.
Over promise, under deliver. I think did I say it the opposite way? I think I was
Oh,
saying I yeah, like I want to make sure that they're 100% satisfied no matter what.
yeah.
We're always going to give them more than what they wanted. We're going to exceed their expectations in all capacities. And if we don't, then I will continue working with them until we exceed the expectations. Like it's not one of those moments where we're like, okay, well, we tried, whatever. Like no, like I will lose money and to make sure that they're happy. Like that is the number one focus for me was always
Yeah.
user, 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 just like the Steve Jobs ethos. Like your user is so important, just like your client is so important, but also not necessarily, we weren't necessarily just building it for the client themselves or the corporation or enterprise or whatever it was. We were building it for their customers. So I was thinking it was like a trickle down effect of how can their customers have the best possible experience and for them to be have such an amazing experience using the product, whether it was a supply chain or
Mm.
a manufacturing app or distribute logistics or warehousing, whatever it may be. We wanted the entire ecosystem to be able to be trained on it and to be able to use it and love it, and for all of their employees to be able to use it, and for them to have a lot of assets and especially deliverables as far as data. That was a huge focus for us, as well as giving them a lot of like data points, and for us to give an analytics focus
Mm.
for them to see more analytics from and data points from their customers or their employees.
I was actually, what the thing that was behind my question was how do you shape customer expectations? Because customers either have expectations or they don't, or some vary. I mean, it's how do you shape that was what I was interested in. How you,
Yeah, it's different. I mean, like I don't know what the customer that when a customer is expecting something, everyone is different, right? So it's a little bit of a subjective question. Every single client's going to be different. Every
yeah.
single product is going to be
Well,
different.
that's why I was
Project is going to
asking.
be different.
That's why I
There's
was asking
no
because
way that you,
it's not simple, is
yeah,
it?
no, and it's like an a la carte. Yeah, you have to figure out number one, what is their motive? What is their
Yeah, yeah,
drive?
yeah, yeah.
Is it to make it a splash or is it just a small fix? Like, do we want to make sure that we're giving them something that's amazing? And I would tell them a lot of times they would want this huge, incredible, like complex product or project. And we say, we don't have to do all of that. Like, we can just do this, this, and this. And it's going to be way cheaper for you. And a lot of the clients
Mm.
loved that. They loved us because I was very truthful with them. And so I would say we can just do this for this, and this is going to be a lot cheaper for you, and it's going to work a lot better, and it's going to take less time. So let's just do that. And sometimes it was advantageous for us because we could complete a product really quickly for them. And in other times, it was just us trying to be a good steward.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one final question before we wind up. I mean, it's interesting the things that you just, if you were to give a bit of advice to somebody starting out on a journey like yours, and there's going to be quite a few people that are going to build businesses like yours,
Yeah.
I mean, what would your advice be to them?
When it comes to an I think that it's exciting. It's an exciting landscape. I think fast moving. I think distribution is going to be paramount for a solopreneur if you're doing anything in the tech space or AI space as you're launching a
Yeah,
solo
sorry,
project.
let me just clarify. When you use the word distribution, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, I think that your landscape and your customer basis, you have to have relationships with those already. Like that's going to be number one. You can't go out here cold. Like it's going to be very, very, very difficult because it's going to be so saturated. A lot of it, especially if it is consumer related, it is going to be very saturated.
So how
But
do
I
you
think right
stand?
now there's so many gaps. There's so many gaps that
Right.
are out there in the landscape that have not been touched. Um, that I even like am excited about, especially with manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, how do you differentiate yourself? But what you're saying is there's so many gaps you don't need to. You just need to be able to fill the gap, if you like.
Yeah, fill the gap. There's so many, and like I said, there's so many technologies that are going to come out, but it's so many categories that don't even exist yet. Just like I said with the iPhone and
Mm.
the app landscape, user interface, UI, UX, an entire industry was dawned. E-commerce
Mm.
shopping off of your phone, Amazon, everything just really flourished once that iPhone came out. And I think this is the next catalyst, but it's times a million.
Mm.
It's the industrial revolution on steroids, and it's going quicker and it's faster, and there's so many opportunities. I think that it don't necessarily think of it as like a doomsday prophecy for your employment or for your job. I think it's how can you be best utilized, and if you're not adopting AI right now, you have to start today.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the number one.
Abigail, thank you for that. I mean, a great piece of advice, actually. Well, a couple of good pieces of advice there. I mean, focus on what you do well and start using AI as soon as you can. I mean, two pretty
That's
good
right.
pieces of advice given the way the world is at the moment. So thank you for that. And thank you for making a bit of time to talk us through what you're doing. I mean, it's such an interesting area. As you said, very fast moving, but very exciting. And
Yeah,
there is so much potential going forward. I mean, it's certainly going to be an interesting few years, I think.
it's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
Yes. I'm
absolutely.
excited to see the policy that comes out because we really don't have any in the United States yet.
No,
That's
we
what
will
we're
do.
looking forward to.
Yeah, we will do soon. Abigail, thank you for taking time. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.